Straight
Failure hustler. You didn't know there was such thing as a failure hustler. Well, we talked about the race hustler in episode 1824. Today we're talking about the failure hustler. This episode is designed to call out the illusion of staying busy, and working hard and allegedly trying different things while still not creating or producing tangible progress. This is called failure hustling. Y'all never knew that was a term. That's a term. So let me describe it again. Staying busy, working hard, trying different things while still not making tangible progress. What you're doing is failure hustling. Okay, so now we put a term on that. We put a label on it. There's a common cope. The cope is not somebody saying I'm a failure hustler. The cope is I work hard, I'm trying different things, I'm always busy, and using busy as an excuse. These are all copes that are representative of being a failure hustler. Okay, that's the claim that I'm making here today. There's a cope that people use to keep themselves running on the treadmill of these things: effort, trying different things, being busy, etc. I'm going to call out what it looks like. I will describe what it feels like so you can self-identify. If I happen to be discussing you, I'm not going to leave you in alerts though. Once you self-identify, I'm going to tell you what to do and where to go to fix the problem as well. And what you're going to do is join Work on Your Game University. I'll tell you that up front, but let me make my case and I'll remind you again at the end. Point number one, today's topic once again is the failure hustler. What exactly is this? Number one, I'm going to describe the failure hustlers, okay? Number one, you are always grinding but never growing. If you are always grinding and never growing, you might be a failure hustler. Now, there's this guy, I think he's still alive. His name was Jeff Foxworthy. Any of you heard of this guy, Jeff Foxworthy? And he had this, let's see if I can find him. Jeff Foxworthy had this shtick going along for a long time. I'm looking him up and see, is he still alive? Yeah, he was born in 1958. He is still alive. He is 66 years old. He's from Atlanta, and he's been active since 1982. This guy's been in the game for a long time. And he had this whole shtick that was called You Might Be a Redneck. I think that was him. I think it was Jeff Foxworthy who did the redneck thing, right? Yeah, he did the Jeff Foxworthy redneck. So he built a whole brand around this whole redneck thing. So the same way Tim Ferriss did the 4-hour thing, Jeff Foxworthy did the redneck thing. So he would say something and he would say, you might be a redneck. And he would make all these jokes about what a redneck was. So I'm going to do the same. I'm going to use the same frame from Jeff Foxworthy about talking about failure hustlers. So if you are always grinding but never growing, you might be a failure hustler. All right, there is no growth, no development, no real tangible change, yet you are working all the time. Every now and then, when I'm online talking about something business or personal or professional development related, or maybe even a current event, I get a comment from someone who knows of me or knew me from back in the day when I was making basketball content. They'll see me in a suit. They'll see me talking about something that's not basketball. They'll see me talking about something that's business or current events. And they will leave some form of a comment. And they will say, I used to like your stuff. I remember watching your stuff back when you were talking basketball. And then they will ask some form of the question, why don't you talk about or play or make content about basketball anymore? I get a question or comment like this, usually about once or twice a week online these days. Or they'll just ask me if I play basketball anymore. Or they will offer some critique of what I happen to be talking about. That usually happens when it's a social issue or current event that I'm talking about. Someone's offering a critique of the thing that I'm saying. But instead of actually critiquing what I'm saying, what they'll usually do is they say, well, hey, I liked when you talked about basketball, or I liked when the topic was just basketball. So to those people, and any of you who fit that description, there is one blanket answer that I give to all those people. I will agree. I'll make a deal with these people. I will agree to go back to making basketball content. Okay, I will go make basketball content again. I'll put the suit away in the closet. I'll put on basketball gear. I will go to the gym and I'll make basketball content all over again if you agree to go back to being in the 10th grade and trying to make your high school basketball team, even though now you are 27 and you have a family to take care of. So if you agree to go back to the 8th grade or the 10th grade trying to make the team, I'll agree to go back to being a basketball guy who only talking about basketball stuff. So if I gotta retroactively ungrow and regress back to who I was 15 years ago, you got to do the same thing. Or if you do it, I'll do it. We got a deal? All right, you beat Benjamin Button and go backwards. I'll go back to being a basketball guy. And most people can't answer that question. I have evolved and grown since the days that I was posting basketball content, which is why the message, approach, and presentation have all changed, because I ain't the same person. I am the same person, but I'm not. The failure hustler does not change their message. They don't change their presentation. They never change their approach. They just find different ways to work hard and quote unquote grind, but there is no progress to show. And the reason why this becomes a problem is because there is no progress to show. The whole point of grinding and hustling and working is there is some type of progress that's supposed to be happening. If you've been working on things for a long time, you've been putting in the time, you've been putting in the effort, and you're not showing any tangible growth, there is no tangible development happening, there are some places where you do need to just keep working and keep grinding and keep hustling. There are times when that makes sense, but there are other times when you grinding, hustling, and continuing to show up is simply not producing the desired result. You may want to find or try or be assigned a different approach aside from what you've been doing up to this point. One sign that you may be a failure hustler is that you just keep grinding on something, but you're not making any tangible progress, especially over an extended period of time. I've had times in my life where I self-assessed that I was failure hustling. I was doing all the work, I was putting in the time, but I wasn't really getting any tangible results. And I said, something different has to happen here. I can't keep doing the same thing. This formula is not working. So you got to be able to point this out and be honest with yourself about it and have a conversation with the man or the woman in the mirror when these types of things are happening. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is the failure hustler. And we're talking about what they are, how to know if you may be a failure hustler. Number 2, your hustle is an identity rather than a strategy. If your hustling is an identity rather than a strategy, you might be failure hustling. This is an important distinction that I want to make sure everybody understands. So I want to spend some time on this point because I want to make sure nobody misses it. Hustling, as we talked about in the past, can be a good thing. And it's a good idea in many places and at many times for when done for the right reasons. I remember I was having a conversation the other day. On social media, and it was some conversation that I jumped into, and it was about people having this false belief that to become an entrepreneur, if you're not one right now, a lot of people seem to have this false belief. I don't know. Actually, I do know why they have it. I'll tell you in a second. They have this false belief that if you become an entrepreneur, you got to work 60, 70, 80 hours a week. It's going to be more hours than you're already working at your job. Even then, it takes all that time to even get the business going, and you got to have credit, and you got to have capital, and you got to have all types of connections, et cetera, to start the business, and it's not even worth it. So the people complaining about their jobs and not making enough money at their jobs is looking for something to bitch and complain about. They're not actually looking for a solution. And you're gonna have a lot less time than you did at your job. It's not as easy as people like me make it sound. And this is some of the built-in excuses a lot of people have for not starting businesses or having the idea in their mind they can't start a business. They're not really trying to. They're just looking for an excuse. And I'll come across a lot of these people. And many people have this false idea that being an entrepreneur means that you must be a consistent, non-stop hustler forever, and that there is no way out of this matrix once you get into it. Now, while it is true that when you're starting and running a business, you will find yourself at times spending more time working on your business than you would work at a job. And that's usually by choice. It's not because anybody's making you do it, because when you are running your own business, especially when you're starting, nobody's telling you what to do. You do what you want to do. If you want to work 60 hours a week, you do. If you want to work 40 hours a week starting your business, I mean, you can. Most people who start their businesses don't do that because they want to put in the extra time because they want that business to become successful as quickly as possible. And often at the beginning of starting a business, putting in more time is one of the best resources that can help you build the business up. So I understand this approach. So it is true that you may end up spending more time on your business than you would at a job, especially in the early stages. But there are several reasons for that. One is, again, you're working on something that you actually own. So why wouldn't you put in extra time? I mean, it's yours. You're building up something that actually belongs to you. So I'm happy to put in extra time when I'm doing something that's actually going to pay me back in the long run. That's one. Two is that you probably enjoy doing what you're doing. I mean, you're the one who started the business because you can see the end game and where it could possibly take you. Three is that you're building a business, and to do so, you must put the infrastructure in place that is not required of you when you're working at a job. Four is that you're building a business. If you're building it with proper strategy, that there will come a time when you are going to work a lot more than you would at the traditional job because there are certain pieces that need to be put in place. You're passionate about it. You own it. This could be a long-term asset. Everything I told you in the first three pieces are going to lead into this fourth piece. The problem is too many people who are working at a job or running a business, they have turned hustling and grinding into their personal identity and they wear it as a badge of honor. And what happens is in the entrepreneurial space, there are many people who have started businesses and claim to have run and have exited successful businesses. I don't know who a lot of these people are. I see them on social media. They'll jump into comment threads, etc. on X, and they'll say something like, well, I had a business for this many years and I help people start businesses and you definitely had to put in 60 hours. No way to start a business without doing that. That's bullshit. That's not true. That's not true. When you run a business, there is nothing that says you must work 60 hours a week. First of all, just on a simple, logical, rational approach. There is nothing that says when you start a business as an entrepreneur, you must work 60 hours a week. There is nowhere that is handed down to you as a rule. That doesn't exist. But people talk about it as if it's this guarantee. You got to work 60 hours. You start a business, you got to work 60 hours. That's the only way you can get the business to work. And there are people who have never run a business who are repeating this. And I know why they're repeating it because they hear it from other people who say it. Oh, you got to work 60 hours a week to make your business work. What is this a reflection of, folks? Everybody been paying attention the last couple of days? What is this a reflection of? Hustle culture. This is Western society hustle culture where people who create success or they want to talk about success, they warn the other people who want to be successful, hey, these are the things that you have to do. And one of the easiest things to warn, quote unquote, people about is how hard you have to work to be successful. Now, why do people tell you that? Why do they say that? The reason people say that is because they want to put themselves above you by telling you how hard they work compared to how hard you're working. Because here they are with a successful business. They just told you it takes 60 hours a week to have a successful business. You don't have a successful business yet. So clearly you haven't done it 60 hours a week yet. So they are unconsciously putting themselves above you by even saying it. See, that's the game. That's the part nobody's going to tell you. Oh, you got to work 60 hours a week. Here I am with a successful business. So what are they telling you without saying it? I've worked 60 hours a week. You haven't. You're not on my level yet. That's what they're saying. And see, that's the hustle. And now they scared you out of even wanting to start a business because you think you got to work 60 hours a week. And if you do start a business, if you're not working 60 hours a week, then clearly you must be doing something wrong. And if your business is not working out and you go to someone for help, maybe one of these hustle culture people, not race, but hustle culture people telling you that you had to work 60 hours a week to get your business running. You go to them and show them that you're not working 60 hours a week. Then they're going to say, well, no wonder your business is not working. You ain't working 60 hours a week. Of course. Of course. We know exactly what your problem is when that ain't the problem. I'm not saying that 60-hour weeks may not come and that they couldn't be useful, but is that really the problem? The answer is hell no. That is not the problem. I work with a lot of entrepreneurs who are doing it as a side hustle, entrepreneurs who are transitioning into doing it as their full hustle, entrepreneurs who have been doing it as their full-time business. I work with entrepreneurs at all those levels. Never, ever, ever. No coaching client I have worked with over the last 10 years has ever had the problem of you just need to put in more hours. None of them have that problem. Not one. Now, all of them have things that need to get done that I will diagnose to them. Hey, this needs to be done. We need this for the next piece of the strategy. We need this to make the system work. Yes, there are things that need to be done, but is it because they're not working hard enough or not putting in enough hours? The answer is no, never. Never is that the problem. Yet, many entrepreneurs talk to you as if that's a solution to everything and that if you want to be successful, that's what separates you from everybody else. Nonsense. Too many people think that this is what it is. And then entrepreneurs come in there, again, espousing this same thing as if this is a guaranteed way to work when you're running a business. You got to work 60 hours a week. Otherwise, you can't have a business. Otherwise, you can't start a business. Otherwise, your business will never be successful. This is the only way you can get a business off the ground. You got to work 60-hour weeks. Damn near any entrepreneur you go to, ask them that. Most of them will probably confirm. Yes, you got to work 60-hour weeks to make your business work. Notice what they're saying. All right, they're espousing this whole hustle culture thing as their way of life, and they self-identify with the hustle. Here's what you hear a lot of entrepreneurs say. I started a business, or I've had this many businesses, or I've worked this number of businesses, and I had to work 60 hours a week, make all of them work. What are they really telling you? They're telling you the type of person that they are. They're saying it to aggrandize themselves. They're not saying it because they're trying to give you information. They're saying it because they're trying to put themselves above you because they've done it and you haven't. That's what they're really doing. Now, of course, nobody's going to admit to that. You do not have to work 60 hours a week to start a business. Okay, just for the record, everybody listening to this, you do not. You don't ever have to work 60 hours in a week while running a business. I'm not saying it can't help. But I am saying that working 60 hours a week in a business is never, ever, ever required for that business to exist and for you to make money. That is never required, but people talk about it as if it is. Many people have taken hustling as their personal identity. They don't use it as a temporary strategy and or when necessary. A lot of people just want to be seen trying. This is the failure hustle. The failure hustle. You just want to be seen trying. You want everyone to know that you're trying. You want everyone to know that you're busy and that you're working hard and 60-hour weeks and all this other bullshit that people like to say. Because if you're not doing that, you wouldn't know what else to do. See, this is when hustle becomes your identity, is when you don't know what to do if you're not hustling. So I'm either hustling or I'm doing nothing. That's the way most people see themselves, and that's the way they see life. Now, I know there are some people listening to this to whom what I just said directly applies. I know people at all levels, people who are at 6 and 7 figures in revenue and income who have this identity of, I got to keep hustling. People who are in the low 6 figures who have this identity of hustling. People who are starting their business and trying to get to their first few $1,000s in their business who have this identity of, I got to keep hustling. I don't have time to hustle. I would hustle more. I just don't have the time to do so. All right. None of these are requirements of having a business. Again, please note the nuance here. I'm not saying that putting in extra time can't help a business. I'm saying the idea that it's a requirement, that if you're not doing it, you're doing something wrong, is bullshit. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is the failure hustler. Number 3. Now that I identify what makes you a failure hustler, there comes a point when you must outgrow hustling and you must stop hiding behind this identity of, I'm the hustler. This has to happen. And understand something. The name of this show is Work on Your Game. I became a competent and then a good and then a professional athlete because of my willingness to work on my game, hustle, and grind on the basketball court to make myself better. All right, I hustled to make myself good. I started my business doing the exact same things that had worked in basketball, and I applied them to business. Hustling, grinding, putting in the extra time. That worked to a point. There came a time early in my entrepreneurship, full-time entrepreneurship era, when I realized that I was running on a treadmill, working really hard every day, but not really making tangible progress other than the proverbial blood, sweat, and tears. I wasn't really moving forward. I was working, but I was running on a treadmill. I was staying in the same spot. I knew I needed to start doing things in a different way, and I started to evolve my approach. This was much more of an emotional and mental challenge than it was a tangible and physical challenge, and let me explain why that is. Because I had to unlearn the mindset that working super hard and grinding were the goals of the business. That is not the goal of the business. That may be an element of what I'm doing for this season, but that's not the goal of my business, just be working hard and grinding. Because then the business owns me. I don't own the business. The goal was to achieve certain tangible outcomes that I had laid out, and then I could market. And it didn't matter if I worked super hard or half as hard to achieve them. I was just focused on the outcome, not the effort. Again, think Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos is not working hard as somebody in one of his warehouses, but he leverages the efforts of everybody working in his warehouses, whereas the workers only leverage the efforts of themselves individually. That's why he makes a whole lot more money. He has leverage. Not 60-hour weeks, leverage. The reason Jeff Bezos has the money that he has is because of his leverage, not because of how much time he spends at work. And a lot of entrepreneurs try to tell you the opposite. Oh, I spend that much time at work, but they don't have the leverage. Or they'll respond to what I just said by saying, well, Jeff Bezos worked 60 hours a week to get it started at the beginning. I don't know if he did. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But was that a requirement for his business to become what it became? The answer is no, it's not. Because if he knew more then, such as the things that he knows now, maybe he wouldn't need 60-hour weeks. If you're still working 60 hours a week after a certain period of time and running your business, then you have a structural problem and a systemic problem, not some badge of honor just because you're hustling harder than somebody else. And Western society has, again, codified this to be this big deal. All right. This is the same way that I teach entrepreneurs and business professionals to this day. Unfortunately, I'm still fighting against the ingrained Western mindset, which is all about more effort equals more results. The better you can get this out of your mind, folks, the better chances you have of being successful. Many of you have been indoctrinated with this. That if you're not giving effort, you're slacking off, you're being lazy. How many of you have ever been told this or even told it to yourselves? I'm not giving effort, so I must be being lazy. And how many of you have ever felt guilty because you were not working and quote unquote being productive in the middle of the day? Any of you ever felt that? Now, let me give you a disclaimer. Sometimes it's true. All right. Sometimes you are fucking lazy. All right. Sometimes you are just not trying hard enough. You are not working hard enough, and you are not giving effort. I talked about this in episode number 2568. The title of that episode, Problem, You're Lazy as Fuck. I did a whole episode literally titled You're Lazy as Fuck. Episode number 2434, Lazy, Stupid, or Arrogant. Which one are you? Episode number 2431, Don't be physically diligent and mentally lazy. Okay, so I've talked about laziness. I talked about lazy thought leader marketing mistakes, episode 2865. Episode number 2804, You can no longer afford to be lazy. Okay, so I have no problem talking about effort. Effort does matter. Okay, sometimes it's true, you're just not giving enough effort. And you should be working harder. Other times that's not the case. What you are working on matters a lot more than how hard you're working. And there's a certain point in everyone's career, business-wise, entrepreneur or not, that the question needs to shift from how hard do I need to work to what do I need to work hard on. You need to identify when that shift occurs, and you have to make the shift. You can't just keep working hard and never asking yourself, well, where's this hard work going? What am I applying this to? So this is actually a problem of diagnosis rather than a problem of effort. Let's recap today's class, which is the failure hustler. We are identifying what makes you a failure hustler. You are a failure hustler if, number one, you are always grinding but never growing. Too much time is going by. You're not making any forward movement, yet you are always busy, always working, and always trying new things. You may be a failure hustler. Number two, you have hustle as an identity rather than a strategy. Hustle is something that you do. It is not something that you live. Hustling is not a way of living. Hustling is a thing that you do. You use it as necessary and you put it back on the shelf when you're done. Just like a hammer or a screwdriver, it is a tool. It is not the thing that you do with every single thing that you approach. As the saying goes, if the only tool that you have is a hammer, then everything looks like a nail. And many people operate in this way. This is the reason why a lot of people end up as failure hustlers, because they don't have another way of getting things done besides the continuous hustling. And point number three, there comes a point where you must outgrow hustling, stop hiding behind this identity, and ask yourself some higher quality questions so that you can stop hustling and start owning the results of what you have put in place and start creating leverage rather than creating more opportunities for effort. That's where you take yourself to the next level. And that starts with a way of thinking, then you move into the actions, then you move into the process. Speaking of thinking, actions, and process, inside of Work on Your Game University, mindset, strategy, systems, accountability, performance, and producing results. That's what we focus on. You have me as your direct coach. This is systematized, disciplined, weaponized performance. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. Work on your game. Dre, all